What is going on, everybody? I hope everyone's enjoying their week. If you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button in the corner and that bell notification. That way you don't miss content when I drop it. And today I'm going to be talking about my Panasonic G7 and if it's still worth buying in 2020 for those who are looking to start their first YouTube channel. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we're going to find out. Let's go. How's it going, everybody? The Panasonic G7. Now, this is my actual first camera that I actually bought. Now, for those of you who have subscribed to my channel or who have watched my videos before, know that I did another video on actually buying my first camera, and that was actually my legitimate first camera that I bought, and that was a Sony HX-DSC. I'm sorry, it was a Sony DSC HX80. That was the first actual camera that I bought. It was a point and shoot. It was, I believe, a 20 megapixel flip up screen. I believe it was touch, and it was a decent camera that I had for a while. And then I needed to upgrade to a camera as I had a GoPro and I was shooting everything in 4K. So I needed to find a camera that was within budget, and I believe I was looking at maybe like a $500 budget. Didn't want to go blow up my bank account on something, super expensive, because then I'd have to kind of, top that. So I kind of looked around at different various cameras. I looked at some Sonys, some Canons, and I even went as far as looking at Nikons, and I really didn't find anything in the $500 range that I wanted to buy, except for the Panasonic. Now, I really didn't consider the Panasonics because I didn't really know much about Panasonics, because obviously, when you're looking at cameras, you're really only aware of like the Sonys, the Canons, and the Nikons. So I was watching a video off of the Everyday Dad. So if you don't know who that is, I have a link in the description on his website. He's an amazing YouTuber. I actually bought this camera based on a review that he did on this, and the camera that I'm filming off right now, the G85, I actually bought that camera again based on a review from the Everyday Guy. So for those of you that don't know the Everyday Dad, I'll have a link in the description. That guy's awesome. Give him a follow. I want to shout out to him. I just want to say thank you for all that information that you got on your video reviews on these cameras. You made me a Panasonic lover. So back to my camera. So what was so special about this camera versus all the other cameras in terms of features and for the same price? Well, compared to at the time we had the Canon T6, T6i, T7, T7i, they were more in the same budget range as this, whereas the only Sony that I saw was the A61 or the 6000, which was, I think, around $700. So it was a little bit more out of budget than what I was willing to spend. So I had to compare this to the T6 or the T6 and the T6i, the T7, T7i. The one thing that this had that neither one of those had was it was mirrorless, where those are full frame cameras. So I'm not really super knowledgeable in the differences between full frame and mirrorless, other than I know that mirrorless cameras are a lot lighter and full frames are a lot more heavier, and they're also much bigger. But this had the ability to shoot in 4K capabilities, just like my GoPro, whereas the T6 and the T7 did not have that option. And another feature that this had that neither one of those had was it had a full articulating screen. Now, why does that matter when it comes to doing any type of vlogging on YouTube? Well, it actually has a lot to do with it. Say you needed to do some quick fix with your camera and you have it on a tripod, instead of you having to constantly look back and forth on your camera and constantly being out of focus and then having to make sure that you're in focus again, you can do all those quick changes from the articulating screen as it's looking straight at you by just simply touching it, and then boom, there goes your focus right then and there. Another thing that this had that neither one of those had, obviously, was aside from the articulating screen, was that it was touch. None of those cameras had the ability to use touch screen. You'd have to constantly go into the function menu and having to scroll through menus and doing all that, and that's just not something I was really wanting to do, especially if I'm doing any type of vloggings, such as product reviews or just simple tutorials talking about products. I didn't want to have to sit there and constantly having to go back behind the camera, pressing a bunch of buttons, and then hopefully have them set up the way I wanted to, because you're never going to be in the same location all the time, so there's going to be constantly changing of different different sceneries, and I didn't feel like wanting to go through all that. So, and that, just on that alone, made this definitely worth the money to get. So I actually did. I went ahead and I bought this for about $500. Now on B&H, they have a special on these now. You can get this with the kit lens and an extra lens, a 45 to 150, which I actually have over on my shelf, which I paid $250 for. You get that with, I'm sorry, not $250, $150 for, but you can get it for about that price on the Panasonic, or I'm sorry, on the Best Buy website. So I bought the camera, 4K 30 frames, 4K 24 frames, and it does 1080 at both 60 and 30 frames a second. This came with the kit lens, all of that, for about $500. Now on the B&H website, you can get this same camera with an included lens, the 45 to 150 millimeter, for the same price as what I paid for this at $500. I actually have the lens that I bought separate from this for about $150. On the Panasonic website, it's $250, but you can get it with the link down that I will provide, this with an extra lens for $500, $497.99 for this. It's an amazing camera. Again, I've had this for about almost a year now. I believe I was doing my first YouTube videos with this camera, shooting from this video. So obviously I'm shooting with the G85, but if you look at my previous videos that I have done, I've actually shot every other video with this camera. It's an amazing camera. It has its flaws. I'm not going to go into those like right now in a second, but I will tell you some of the strengths that it has and why I think that this is the best budget camera for those looking to start their first YouTube channel, and for those looking to buy a camera to start a first YouTube channel with. Again, it's mirrorless, so it's a lightweight. It's not very heavy. Even with the 45 to 150 millimeter lens on this, it is still light. I mean, when I put it on there, I thought it would be having some little bit of weight because the lens is a little bit wider, but no, actually it's pretty light still. It's got a good grip, as opposed to the full frame cameras, which are still heavy because they're a little bit bigger, but a good grip on this, so you can actually hold this for hours and your hand will not get tired. Now, where it lacks in certain features that the Canon and the Sony have it beats at, or where they have it beat at, is it doesn't perform well in low lights, and the autofocus is not, I wouldn't say, on par with Canon or Sony. It does a good job of autofocusing. It takes a couple of seconds for it to focus, but in that aspect between the two, between the three, should I say, it does a decent job of that. Like I said, at $500, it is a budget camera. Obviously, it's not going to perform as well as the Canon or the Sony when it comes in terms of the autofocus or in the term of working in low light. But once you figure out the ISO functions on this, it actually does a pretty good job of kind of compensating for that. Again, I've never had an issue with this. This camera is amazing. It has simple controls, really easy to use. Again, you have your mode selection for your movies and the custom settings for that special custom setting if you want to have a custom settings for it. You have right here on your photo side, you have your 4K, you have your burst mode, you still have your time lapse, and you have your motion lapse. The lenses are interchangeable. It's a micro four thirds lens, so you can pretty much adapt any lens to this camera, and some that you can get for not only for the Sonys or the Canons, that you can simply just get a speed booster for and add those lenses to this, but there are other third-party vendors out there that you can use for this as well. I'm actually planning on getting a 35mm $70 lens that I will be using on my Panasonic G85, so stay tuned for that review when I get that. But in terms of functionality and easy, again, it's touchscreen, it's easy to use, and the audio quality is not bad. I wouldn't say it's the best. I've actually used this without using a external mic, and the internal mic and amps aren't too bad. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I'm just basing this off of what I've used, and I've had, again, the Sony, I've used it, and the audio wasn't too bad on it. It wasn't as good as if you had something with an external mic attached to it, but you can actually attach an external mic to this, as it does provide that on the side. Again, with the T6 and the T7i, when I was looking at those did not have that option, at least on the T7 and the T6. So that in itself just kind of made it a no-brainer to buy this. And again, I've had this thing for quite a while. And so what I'm going to do is we're actually going to switch from the G7, or I'm sorry, the G85 to the G7, and I'm going to be using the external mic and then not using the external mic, just so you can hear the differences in audio quality with it versus using an external mic. And I'm going to be using the same V-Log that I've been using on the G85 on the G7. So right now I'm using the Cine V-Log at 24 frames a second. I've actually was using it on this, so we're going to switch from the G85 to the G7 using the same color profile, and we're going to be switching to that now. Now we are shooting on the G7. This is with the standard 14 to 42 millimeter kit lens. Now, with the $500 version that you get on the B&H site, not only do you get the 14 to 42 millimeter lens, but you also get the 45 to 150 millimeter lens, which retails by itself for about $250 that I bought for $150. Now, I think that's one heck of a deal considering how well the camera is and what you get, the best bang for your buck. Now, at first glance, when you actually hold it, it does feel kind of plasticky. When I actually bought it and actually first held it in my hand, I felt like, man, this thing is plastic. If I ever drop this thing, I'm going to break it. But I have not actually dropped it because I take good care of my equipment. But in terms of just the overall feel, again, it does feel kind of plasticky. It's not too bad though. I wouldn't worry about it too much if you take good care of it. But again, it has an amazing grip, so you can hold it forever, and that thing would never get tired on your hand when you're holding it. Now, I actually took this with me when I went to California about a year ago and did a little bit of some video recording on it. It doesn't do too bad. Like I said, I'm mostly a videographer with it, so I'm not really looking at it from a photo standpoint, but it does pretty good photos. It is a 16 megapixel micro four thirds camera. Photo wise, it's not going to give you the best photos. I mean, I wouldn't compare it with, like, say, the Sony's Alpha lineup, or maybe some of the higher end Canons. But in terms of just your budget cameras, it does a pretty good job of it. I'm not going to lie. I was really impressed with it. I was so impressed that I actually went and bought the G85, which is the next version up from this, for about $200 more, which gives you dual IBIS. So this camera does not have stabilization whatsoever on the body itself, but it does have it in the lens, which is just basically called an IOS, or inline optical stabilization. So when you have it sitting up on a tripod, it works fine. You won't have to worry about any shaky videos. Now, when you're out and about doing any type of vloggings, it does have the ability to kind of limit the shakes. In the settings, it's called the stabilizer, so it does have the option for you to enable that to make sure that you get the best video quality as you can without the least amount of shaking in it. Now, typically, if there is any shaking, you can just simply kind of go into the post edit and kind of warp that out. But in terms of overall just carrying it around, it does a pretty good job. I mean, I was really impressed with it. And at $500, I mean, you get full touch, 16 megapixel, 4K capabilities at both 24 and 32 frames a second. It does 1080 at 60, I believe, 30 and 24. And again, at full touch, and you can adapt just about any lens that Panasonic has with this, as well as a lot of third-party lenses that are in the micro four thirds. So again, if I were to be asked, is this camera good for someone looking to start their first YouTube channel, or for someone who's looking to buy their first camera and doesn't want to spend a lot of money, obviously with other choices out there? I'm going to tell you yes. I mean, the best bang for your buck, you get that and a kit lens, and a separate lens for about $500. It's just a no-brainer. And again, I will have a link in the description for where you can get this at. And actually, as you can see, I have the external mic connected because I like wearing my mic this way. I usually get a lot of people who say, why do you wear your mic out like this instead of flipping it around? It's just easier for me this way, because if I do it the other way, it does seem like it's a little bit muffled, and I don't like to really mess with the audio as much. But again, in terms of what you get for the bang for your buck, this camera is amazing. And I'd love to take it out and kind of give you some pretty awesome video footage, but since we're on lockdown, I really can't do that. So this is the best way for me to do it, is just to kind of give it to you from my room. Now, this is what it sounds like using the Rode wireless mic. Now I'm going to show you what it sounds like without it, just using the internal speakers themselves, the internal mic itself. Now you are hearing the audio quality from my Rode wireless mic. Now again, I do get like a lot of people who want to know why I wear my mic out like this instead of just, under. I just like doing it this way. It's different if I'm walking around outdoors, then I'll have it clipped to something else, but on a shirt, it's just fine because, again, usually when I have it backwards, it's when I hear my voice, it does tend to sound a little muffled, so I figured to get the best audio quality, just leave it out. I mean, it's just preference that way. Now, in terms of battery life, I can go for about a couple of hours recording on it, especially depending on the resolution I shoot at, again, which I shoot it at 4K at 30 frames a second. It does limit you to a certain amount of time. I believe you can only record up to about 30 minutes before the camera either stops recording or shuts itself down. So that depends on how big of a SD card you have. Again, what I'm putting in this one is the 32 megabyte or 32 gig SD card. Now, the difference between this and the G85 is that the G85 does not have that timing restriction. It will continue to record until the SD card is full, unlike the G7 where it will continue to record up to 30 minutes and then it stops. And this pretty much goes for most cameras in this price range. Very few of them will allow you to continuously record until the SD card is filled up. So I want to thank everybody for watching this video. If this video was helpful, please hit that thumbs up, hit that bell notification, that way you don't miss content, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And again, I just want to thank everybody for watching my videos. I got some new content coming out soon. Again, I'm buying a new lens for the G85, and I'll be using it on the G7 as well. It's a 35mm one, because now I know the difference between 35mm versus 25mm. I'm definitely going to get the 35mm. So again, I want to thank everybody for watching. And again, this is Black Pino the Apple Guy. And stay safe, stay home. See you next video.